everybody. Chris of e-commerce. Chris, I'm here today with Jed of Piranha and Refund Hawk, talking through some interesting stuff that we've seen lately. Fortunately, achieved a good, solid, successful resolution too, but I'm sure there are other people out there that will have questions or comments about this. Do you want to give maybe a 2-minute overview of how this came up, how you first attacked it, then you and I started talking about it? Because ultimately, I think a lot of our conversations back and forth led to a good resolution, and also people out there might, gain from listening in on this conversation.
Well, and I think the irony is that you and I are the people that others call when things go down, right?
Sure.
So you more so than us. I'm one of the founders I'm a co-founder of Piranha and Refund Hawk. And it's like you and I have been in the Amazon space for a long time. So for us to learn something new, it's kind of cool. And then for us to experience a shutdown ourselves, you get really humble really quick. So for context, Refund Hawk is our reimbursement tool. We started it a year ago because we were plugging in tools for clients and they weren't getting enough back. And Amazon took Refund Hawk totally offline for 10 days, about a few days ago. And we just got it back up live. And we learned a few things in that process. So I think the goal today is pass along a few things that we learned. And ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly. And I've been doing this 10 years. My LinkedIn is sending me, everyone's congratulating me on 10 years. So I must have launched, I barely remember, August 2014, but August 2024 apparently is my 10th anniversary. I'm still learning stuff. I learned a lot from this in particular. And also I like how we married the specific knowledge you had about this space that you're in around, reimbursements and so forth, with the escalation process, which is our bread and butter, right? And we threaded that needle the right way. I think it could have been an additional 21 days if we hadn't done it right, And so that's the rewarding piece. Yeah.
I think it could have been. The irony is this week is actually 8 years since we founded Piranha. So it's your 10-year, it's my 8-year.
Nice.
Officially.
Congrats.
10 years doing Amazon, 8 years at Piranha. But I think I think we could talk about the strategy. I think it'd be the most helpful. One of the things that we did was, I think a lot of people call you, Chris, after they've made a bunch of mistakes and tried to fix it on their own. And then 2 months later, when it's kind of beyond hope, then they call you. We got a notification from Amazon with no explanation, just saying basically you're done, you're shut down, don't contact us. One of those standard boilerplate answers. And I would say, I think a lot of people will say the gratitude for the end. I'd put it at the front. There were some people at Amazon that were insanely helpful. And I would, if they listen to this, I just want to express a tremendous amount of gratitude and humility for them, because you really find out, there's still wonderful people that care at Amazon and that care about a large company doing the right thing. And in this case, we got a lot of eyeballs on it, and there were some people that were critical for that. I'm not going to name them, but I just want to say a public thank you to those people who really, really dug in on a complex issue, and made sure that we could survive as a business. So we really appreciate that.
And they were really responsive too, which is the key. They were communicating in fabulous, wonderful ways that I think Amazon itself would benefit from, in addition to sellers, that quality of communication for earth-shattering stuff that goes on with an account more often,
Well, and I think that's part of the strategy is you've got to find the people at Amazon who can talk. There are people at Amazon that can't really talk externally about what's going on. And then there are people who that's their entire job is to interface with sellers and communicate. And so if you can find people that are genuinely that can communicate with you, that's part of the battle. And in this instance, there were a couple things we learned. One of them is we filed 34,000 cases since Refund Hawk's inception. I'll just be really public with some numbers because I think that helps provide context.
Yeah, it does.
Refund Hawk right now is accelerated really fast. It's getting $500,000 a month back for clients. So it's making our clients more profitable, which is awesome. And Amazon shut us down for, Chris, you were the one who recognized that it was a .f, a potentially fraud situation. That's what it was flagged for. And we didn't recognize the situation because there was no escalation pathway. It wasn't like submit an appeal or a plan of action. It was just, hey, you're done. And it appears to have come from the buyer side, like the customer email side, not seller performance. So
That's
nine
the scary
times out of
stuff.
it's super
First
scary
message
because
sometimes says you're done.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. The first message was you're done, and we're not telling you why,
and we're never talking to you again. Yeah.
yeah. And I think the cool part is, we work really, really hard to be 100% white hat compliant. So we had, one of the things for reimbursement tools is it's supposed to be all manual. Mm-hmm. So we built a team of 14 people that do the reimbursements, file the cases manually. And you can't say that, in 34,000 instances that you were perfect, but you can say the intent was to be compliant all the way along. When it came down to it, we found approximately 69 cases out of 34,000 where Amazon had reimbursed 13.8K more than what they were probably supposed to.
Right.
And out of 3 million. So our success rate was 99.8% success rate at compliance and at reimbursements. And for Amazon, that's not quite good enough. So it's that one needle in the hay. It's that one needle in the haystack, that one person on the team that maybe has a bad day or is new or doesn't know what they're doing. And that can cause a situation. So I think on the technical side, I think this is helpful. Should we get into the strategy of how we approach it? Or do you think we should go into like some of the technical side details?
So I thought about it over the weekend too. I realized that a multifaceted approach and a synchronized strategy meant a lot for this particular. Maybe you don't need it for every reinstatement appeal for every situation, but anything that has any degree of nuance or complexity, I think you should, first of all, be ready for something complex before it hits you, especially heading into Q4, but all the time. And secondly, understand that communication means something different when you're communicating with a business like Amazon versus any other business communication you have with the rest of the business world, or even like for the rest of your other parts of your life outside of your business. They want to talk to a certain way at a certain time of day, right?
Yeah. I've learned a few things the hard way. One of them is your gut instinct, your natural reaction is to panic and suddenly start calling Amazon a ton and communicating with Amazon a ton. And that's the wrong thing to do. The first thing to do is to do an internal investigation, a deep one, and see if you can figure out what caused it and go as deep as you can on your on your side. Mm-hmm. The second principle that's worked well is to have kind of an every other day or every couple of days cadence of communications, because it will take Amazon. Sometimes there's teams overseas. You've got to give them 24 hours of space, because otherwise what you do is this all goes into like a queue.
Yeah.
And you don't want to make it hard for somebody to review the queue. You want to make it easy. So you want to just put the best information at each turn that you can get. And then they're not going to respond to you every day. So an every other day or every couple days cadence is fantastic. And that's what we got. Was the first thing is there's some, I'm going to talk about some teams and some resources that I think are helpful. I mean, the first call I made was to Chris and hired Chris on the spot. Chris and I would feel like you and I are peers. We work on projects together all the time. We worked on a project last year. One of our clients does 80 to 100 million a year on Amazon. They were offline for a little bit. I'm not going to name who it was, but one of the first things I did was bring you in on that project because you have connections I don't. You have a different perspective. You understand some things I don't, vice versa. And so the first thing I did was hire you, pay your fee's fantastic. You're relatively cheap. And then you and I talk strategy of here's what we have. Here's what we think it is. Let's see if we can go validate. So, the timing was really poor. So some of our clients had gotten a notification about the automated program rolling out by Amazon, and we got shut down like 5 days later. So the optics were Amazon announces a tool that does part of what you do, and then 5 days later or so shuts us down.
Yeah.
Right. And so our first hypothesis was, are these two events connected? That would be fairly underhanded. And we want to always assume the best. So, hey, let's assume it's not that, even though that could be connected or related. Let's go see what else we can find. And I think that's one thing people don't do is they don't think about, they find one possible answer, they latch onto it. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. One of my friends at Amazon made a point. He said, I think when people get caught up with Amazon, they're very methodical and very data-based. A lot of times there's a kernel of truth in there to what happened or what they said. And this case was no different. Like, we had made, like when we got really technical and we got really down into it, there's two things that we learned. One of them is Amazon thought we were filing multiple cases, trying to get the same reimbursement back multiple times. When we looked at it, that actually had not happened. What had happened was Amazon denied the first case when a reimbursement was due. So instead of following up and reopening that case like you're supposed to, somebody who was new just opened another case and we only got one reimbursement. We did not get two reimbursements.
Right.
The second issue was more technical, which is the partner carrier program and the carrier fees. I didn't know this, Chris. I think this was news to you, but Amazon charges the fees for LTL shipments within 1 hour, but for small parcel shipments, they actually wait 24 hours before they charge it by policy.
I learned that as well. Yeah.
Is that always what happens? And when we got into it, there was one time where we had requested reimbursement for some carrier fees and Amazon hadn't incurred the client. We were so fast and so good and so aggressive at filing for reimbursements that Amazon hadn't had time to file or to charge the client for the carrier fees on some canceled shipments. And so the amounts were really small. You're talking about 99.6% of the revenue was filed and reimbursed correctly. And for most other reimbursement tools, they're not filing that aggressively or that fast. And so they're not running into that issue, but it was a simple fix. It's like, just wait 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
And then now we have to add a safety check to make sure the fees have been incurred before we ask for a reimbursement. And because at the core of it, if you cancel a shipment and you paid them to ship it for the carrier, but the carrier never ships it, you can ask, hey, can we get reimbursed for the carrier fees?
Yeah. I love what you said about the cadence for one point. 48 hour, 36 hour, maybe sometimes 72 hours. Not everyone wants to wait 72 hours for an escalation of process. But the spam technique has been completely debunked and outed as that does not help you. You're cluttering up their emails, the case info they have to review. You're working against yourself if you're escalating too much to too many different places, or if you're doing it just because you feel better if you send something every day. And we do have some people that we work with who are like, what are we sending today? We need to send something else today. Sometimes it harms more than it helps, right? And we just consider that spam. Like, I use different terms for it. Sometimes I say, don't use the spam a lot approach. I like I said, don't panic. That made me think of all the people spamming. We need to come up with a new word like spamic or something. Don't spam.
Maybe I think the other thing too, and I think this is one thing that people get wrong, is you have to put it all on the table. If you have made a mistake, or if there is something that you have done that you're not sure about, then you've got to be upfront with that so that people can help you with it, because people have a very strong BS meter, especially people internal at Amazon. They get asked to help all the time. And so you've got to you got to clearly say, like, one thing I said was just, hey, we're 100% manual to be compliant. However, it's possible we made a mistake, but we haven't found it yet. Right. And we weren't the ones that found it. There was when you get down to the core of it, there was a relatively new person in the risk management department. One of the other things we didn't do that they didn't recognize is that Piranha is the umbrella holding co, and that's listed in the partner directory. But Refund Hawk, from an ownership, it's a technical legal thing. It's a separate business, but it's owned by the same holding co. It's walled off. It's separate, but it's listed under. We hadn't created a second Seller Central account for Refund Hawk to then get listed in the partner directory.
Right.
So when the risk management person went to look in the directory to see if they recognized Refund Hawk, they didn't recognize that it was listed under Piranha. And so out of an abundance of caution, we had just been using Piranha in the partner directory. However, one of the fixes for us was very simple. Create a Seller Central account, get listed in the partner directory as a reimbursement tool. So it's just dummy proof.
Yeah. And we were fortunate that we connected with some seasoned veterans at Amazon who know what's going on. They appreciated your presence for all these years, what you guys have done right. And you're looking to continue to do things the right way, and you weren't holding back info or trying to massage the conversation in a weird way where it was kind of a thinly veiled, we're very frustrated with Amazon. We don't like that Amazon did this to us. I don't care about the details, just fix it, right? Which is tempting to think that way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the business unit, and I'm being really transparent with some numbers because I think there'll be 8 people that watch this, so I'm actually not that worried. And if any competitors watch it,
sure,
it could be 800. Sure. I mean, if, there's fantastic other tools out there. Like I think Yoda does a great job. I think Aton at Katita does a great job. There's a lot of folks out there that have great tools. And for me, if some of this helps them avoid the same fate, I'll do anything to help someone else. And this is kind of a pay it forward, at a nice scale level. But at one point, there were around 24 Amazonians internally that were discussing this and going back and forth. I can't verify that. I don't know. That's just what one of my friends
That's
said.
what we heard. Yeah.
That's what we heard.
And I think at least 3 teams, I believe. 4.
And
maybe.
I think sometimes at Amazon, the left hand doesn't talk to the right. And so one of the principles is build a network and a reputation of doing the right thing, so that, because the worst time to build that network or to build that reputation is when you're having a problem, like when you're shut down. Like reputations take years to build and they take minutes to destroy. And so it's like, I was so grateful for the people who really had no reason to step in, but did. And were willing to say, hey, I think this team should talk to this team. Hey, I think this might be the actual issue. We get really far down into it. And we made a mistake on 0.2% of our cases.
Yeah.
But were we trying to defraud Amazon? No. And what's great is it held up to sunlight, right? Like when Amazon went really deep and shined a light on it, they went, yeah, I don't think this risk management person, all I can say is we're reinstated, and I'm really grateful for it. And
yeah, I mean, carefully timed escalations, like all the little details matter. Carefully timed, properly composed, right? Not too long, not ridiculously short, kind of just right. Sent at the right time, discussions with the right people. I think some of what we did by kind of tag teaming on this was it helped Amazon communicate better to us. It helped them listen more. Like these were people that were already listening, and we didn't have to push them to listen, but it helped them listen more and better. And it helped them communicate better back to us, whether it was written or verbal. That was the best part for me. I think they helped us and we helped them.
Yeah. And you and I, what's interesting is you and I have different styles. I mean, I try to put everything into a doc, but try to be as concise as possible. I wrote one version of what happened that had screenshots, data points, but, was trying to be as concise. We communicated one package to Amazon. You took it and said, hey, it's a little long. How about we tighten this up? And just that is helpful, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure a lot of people waste a lot of time and words explaining stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think the principle is be bright, be brief, be gone. Like, state your case, as convincingly as you can, using the facts that you can, leaving room for where you might be wrong. I think we did that. We left room for, if we've done something wrong, tell us and we'll fix it. And when we got right down to it, like it wasn't of any material significance.
Yeah. And that was the humility, that you led with. And that's, I think, really important.
Yeah.
I love to be bright, be brief, be gone. We're going to have to use that, or we'll footnote you on that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be good at it. It's tough, but I think it works. And it's really important in these situations because, I'm again, back to like strategy for dealing with these sorts of issues. First, ounce prevention, pound a cure. It's best to never be in that situation in the first place, but you will be. You just can't avoid it. You'll have some problems. And I think that's where the things that were helpful, I'm going to talk about some teams. One is there's an agency partnership team. That's fantastic. I'm not going to name names, but they were instrumental, especially in connecting the right teams to talk, because sometimes that's a challenge. There was a couple of senior level advertising executives that are well known in the industry, and they were instrumental in getting the case escalated for the right people to look at it.
Connecting
and then
some
there were
dots
some
internally. Yeah.
And then there were some people in DC that do seller relations.
Yeah.
And you and I don't spend a lot of time in DC, at least I don't. But
sometimes
they've got some ability to communicate with sellers more than the normal person. And they were instrumental in saying, I can't tell you some things, but I can tell you where to look, and giving us or I can tell you we're looking at it. I can't tell you what's going on. Just know like it's moving forward and progressing. And just that, when you're stressing out about the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars that are not, that have gone to zero, it's fantastic. I mean, the entire shutdown, it cost us between 20 and 40 grand, right? For 10 days, it's not bad, and our clients, we didn't file for around 200,000 in reimbursements during that time, but our clients didn't lose anything because we're so up to date that we can just go back and we can now request that. And we can do that with hopefully 100% success rate now instead of 99.8.
Yeah. No, it was a happy ending. Obviously, all of these pieces had to work out in their respective areas, and then we had to fit it back into a whole, which isn't always easy to see exactly how to do that at any given moment. But, combination of perseverance, strategy, having a sound strategy from the beginning, and then keep pressing with it, right? Without asking for too much info that people at Amazon obviously can't give you, or making those kind of avoidable mistakes. So, yeah.
And that's where I think it's helpful
panned out.
I think it's helpful to have friends. Like there were some sellers that had recently dealt with a similar issue. And they provided some good advice. So the other thing is you might think you have a pretty good playbook for dealing with it, but Amazon's processes and escalation pathways are always evolving. And in this case, there was some new pathways that have opened up that you and I know about that I don't think everybody's aware of. And I think that those are helpful for getting the right eyeballs to look at it.
Sometimes useful pathways pop up and they become less useful less quickly because it leaks or somebody finds out about it. And then everyone tries to send something in or get in touch with those people, or just completely ruin it by sending unrelated, irrelevant.
It's like a Jeff B escalation. A Jeff B escalation used to be like this secret thing that no one knew about. Now a Jeff B escalation is like, not to say it's old news, but it's like, to your point, the value goes down when the traffic level increases. And so I think that's where you've got to find legitimate white hat pathways to communicate with Amazon in the right way. And then you've got to give them the package so they can just take the PDF and it's got everything in it. And I think that's one thing that's really helpful is like, in a 1-page document, can you summarize the root cause of the problem, what you think it is, then leave some room for Amazon to say, hey, we need you to make a couple of adjustments here.
Well said. Any last thoughts for people or?
Well, I would have said Refund Hawk was the most compliant tool on the planet before this. I would say after this, hopefully we can go from 99.8% cases filed correctly to 100%. I think we can, but I think we learned some of the technical side things that I don't know that other reimbursements are aware of. And I'd say there's a lot of money that brands can get back. So using a tool like Refund Hawk or like Gatita, or like, Yoda with 3 Colts, you've got Rohan does a great job with Dime Tide. You've got to use a tool like that, and you've got to focus on the white hat providers that you can trust with that data. And that's really the focus that we've had is like, we want to protect the data and then use it only for what it's meant to be used for, and then file legitimate reimbursement cases with Amazon because, they're going to change the parameters to continue making that harder to get that money back. And, but I think you've got to really care to go get that money back. So my only thought, and then the other thought is if anyone is dealing with a similar issue, feel free to reach out to you or to me. I'd say call Chris first, cause that's what he does for a living. We usually only work on when our clients go down on the Piranha side. But I would say hey, it all came through, and I'd say 10 days is record time for this type of an issue.
It was a learning experience, and Amazon's serious about compliance. So that's why people who dabble in certain services tend to not have the 360 view or perspective on not just what could potentially go right and make you money, but what could potentially go wrong and require real handle with care troubleshooting. So
Amazon did the right thing here. I think they get a lot of crap when things don't go right. But I think like on this one, they deserve a round of applause. Like they handled it so professionally, and it was handled as well as could be expected. I would say it was a perfect case study in how to work with sellers and work with an agency or work with a reimbursement team to say, hey, we found something that you need to adjust, but hey, this is definitely not worthy of a shutdown here. And there was no intent to get more money back than what you were owed. And I think that's the coolest part is, Amazon deserves a lot of credit here for doing the right thing.
Agreed. Yeah. This is definitely our case study template going forward.
I'm not sure Dharmesh makes enough money, but he's got a tough job. I think he doesn't get enough credit for when things go well.
Yeah. All right, Jed, thanks for having this conversation with me. Jed of Rawson of Piranha and Refund Hawk. If anyone, like he was saying a moment ago, if anyone has any questions, you're going through something similar, let us know. You never know. We might be able to answer a question or two and get you back.
Make it your first call. Don't wait 2 months. Make it your first call. Just know it, settle in for like it's going to be a long week, a long 2 weeks, maybe a long month. Make the call. Make that your first call. Yeah. Hopefully not month.
That's a good point.
Chris, great times, dude.
Don't wait around for magic to happen. Understand that magic has to be created.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks, Jed.